So a new poll came out this week from the University of New Hampshire. It is a New Hampshire Republican presidential primary poll, and it shows that Ron DeSantis is now leading in the state. He is beating Donald Trump by 2 percentage points, 39 for Ron DeSantis, 37 for Donald Trump. It was 43-18 back in October of last year, so DeSantis has made up a lot of ground. And at least one Republican pollster, Frank Luntz, believes that this is all the evidence he needs to really prove that Republicans are moving on from Donald Trump. Like, it's over. It's done. This one tiny little poll that only sampled, a few hundred people in one state, a small state, a tiny state, but an important state for primaries, I'll give him that, thinks, nope, this is proof. This is it. It's over. So Luntz appeared on CNN on Thursday, and he was asked by CNN White House correspondent Caitlin Collins. She said DeSantis is the greatest threat to Trump when it comes to the Republican Party. And Luntz responded, quote, "It's more than a threat. The governor is proving that his approach and what he's trying to accomplish and what he has accomplished in Florida is more significant, and Republicans are now saying it's time to move on." There's now polling out that shows that Donald Trump is actually paying a price for what these hearings are showing. Now, he is right about that. The polls have shifted tremendously in just 2 weeks of these hearings, right? Donald Trump is paying a price in the polls for what he did, or at least for what the committee has, framed the whole debate as. And Luntz does go on to also mention, look, Trump's still a hugely influential figure in the party. You're not going to be able to remove him from it, but removing the voters from him shows that, yeah, we like you. You did great. It's awesome, but we're gonna go over here now. We still like you, man. You can come with us, but it's time for us to move on. So the question is, does one single poll in one single state with a 5.5 percentage point margin of error, which is really bad, by the way, says that the poll is essentially unreliable, just to be clear, does that really show that Republican voters are moving on? It wouldn't. If, as Luntz pointed out, the other polls hadn't already showed similar things happening. Donald Trump's unfavorability ratings have, of course, ticked up in the 2 weeks since the committee hearings became public. On top of that, and this to me is the more important one, prior to the first televised hearing, 2/3 of the country did not think Donald Trump was responsible for what happened on January 6th. Well, fast forward to today, 2/3 of people in the country now believe that Donald Trump should be criminally charged for what happened on January 6th. That is a huge reversal. From 66% saying, nah, he's not responsible. Now 66% say, lock him up. That's pretty significant. That is a massive shift. And of course, DeSantis covering a 25-point gap between him and Donald Trump since October of last year. That's a pretty massive feat. DeSantis, in my opinion, and I explained this over at Ring of Fire yesterday, DeSantis is far more worrisome than Donald Trump could ever even imagine to be. He has all of Donald Trump's horrible policies without any of the baggage. And that makes him far more dangerous because he's far more competent. And it does look like voters are starting to say, we got to move on from Trump. Who's the next man up? And unfortunately, that next man up is Ron DeSantis. So yeah, I actually do agree with Frank Luntz for once. I think Republican voters are slowly starting to tell the party it's not just time to move on, but we are already moving on. Hey everyone, this is Aspen. And did you know that for the low cost of $0 per day, you can subscribe to the Fair and Balanced YouTube channel. We also encourage you to like, comment, and share. But again, click that subscribe button and help Aspen not be so grumpy.